My family excluded me from my brother's graduation party, but sent me a $85,000 invoice for the venue, catering, and his gift they expected me to pay. Welcome back, beautiful people. Before we begin, subscribe and tell us in the comments where you're tuning in from. We love seeing this community grow worldwide. The email arrived at 11:47 p.m. on a Tuesday. Subject line: payment due immediately. I was sitting in my home office, finishing quarterly reports for the tech startup where I'd worked 70-hour weeks for the past 3 years. My coffee had gone cold hours ago. The blue light from my screen burned my tired eyes as I clicked open the message from my mother's email address. Dear Janelle, attached, please find the invoice for Nelson's graduation celebration expenses. Your portion comes to $85,000. Payment is expected within 30 days to avoid legal action. Mother. I read it 3 times. My hands started shaking so badly I had to set down my mug before I dropped it. $85,000. For a party I didn't even know had happened. I clicked the attachment with trembling fingers. The PDF loaded slowly, each line appearing like a slap across my face. Venue rental for the grand ballroom, $35,000. Catering for 200 guests, $28,000. Custom Rolex watch, graduation gift $18,000. Photography and videography, $4,000. My brother Nelson had graduated from law school 2 weeks ago. I knew because I'd seen the photos on Instagram. My entire family smiling in their formal wear, champagne glasses raised, celebrating his achievement. I wasn't in a single picture. Nobody had told me about the party. Nobody had invited me. But apparently they expected me to pay for it. I grabbed my phone and called my mother. It rang 4 times before going to voicemail. You've reached Patricia. Leave a message. Mom, what the hell is this invoice? Call me back. Now. She didn't call back that night. I didn't sleep. How could I? At 6 a.m. I sat at my kitchen table staring at that invoice, trying to understand how my family could be this cruel. Nelson had always been the favorite. From the moment he was born 5 years after me, he was treated like royalty. When he wanted piano lessons at age 6, Dad bought a grand piano. When I'd asked for art supplies at the same age, Mom told me to use crayons from the dollar store. Janelle, you need to understand something. Dad had told me when I was 12 and Nelson was 7. We were sitting in his study and I just asked why Nelson got a new bike when mine was broken. Nelson has potential. Real potential. He's going to be someone important. You're a smart girl, but you're practical. You'll do fine, but Nelson? He's special. Those words burned into my memory like a brand. I put myself through college with scholarships and 3 part-time jobs. Nelson had his tuition paid in full, plus a luxury apartment and a new car. When I graduated with honors in computer science, 12 people came to a small dinner. When Nelson graduated undergrad, they threw a party for 80 people at a country club. I told myself it didn't matter. I told myself I'd prove my worth through my own success. At 28, I was a senior software engineer making $180,000 a year. I bought my own home. Built my own life. But this was different. I called my mother again at 7 a.m. This time she answered. Janelle, it's very early. You sent me an invoice for $85,000. Yes, and? My mother's voice was cold, matter-of-fact, like she was discussing grocery lists. And I expect payment within 30 days as stated. Mom, I wasn't even invited to this party. My voice cracked. I hated that it did. Of course you weren't invited, Janelle. Don't be dramatic. She sighed like I was being unreasonable. You know how you get at family events. Always making everything about you, creating tension. Nelson's graduation was his special day. We couldn't risk you ruining it with your jealousy. The words hit me like physical blows. By jealousy? I've never done anything to ruin. Remember Thanksgiving 2 years ago? She interrupted. When you got upset because Nelson announced his law school acceptance. You made the whole evening uncomfortable. I remembered that Thanksgiving differently. Nelson had announced his acceptance and everyone had cheered. Then Dad had turned to me and said, "See, Janelle? This is what real ambition looks like." I'd excused myself to the bathroom and cried for 20 minutes. When I came back, composed and smiling, Mom had pulled me aside and hissed, "You're embarrassing yourself. Grow up." I congratulated him, I said quietly. I was happy for him. Your face told a different story. Anyway, this isn't a debate. Your family contributes to important celebrations. Your father and I covered $40,000. Nelson's godparents covered $30,000. You're covering $85,000. Why is my portion so much larger? Because you make more money than anyone else in the family, Janelle. You're always bragging about your fancy tech job in your house. Time to put your money where your mouth is and support your brother's success. I sat there, phone pressed to my ear, feeling like I'd entered an alternate reality. I've never bragged about anything. I barely talk about my job because every time I do, you change the subject. There you go again, playing victim. My mother's voice grew sharper. Everything is always about poor Janelle. Do you know how exhausting it is? Your brother achieves something wonderful and you can't just be happy for him. You have to make it about your hurt feelings. I didn't even know about the party. Because we knew you'd react exactly like this. She was yelling now. Selfish. Self-centered. You've always been jealous of Nelson. Since he was born, you've resented him for being loved. The accusation was so absurd I actually laughed. A bitter, broken sound. Loved? Mom, you told me when I was 10 that I was the practice child. You said you figured out parenting by the time Nelson came along. Silence on the other end. Then, I never said that. Yes, you did. We were at the mall. I asked why Nelson got 3 birthday parties and I got 1. You said. I don't remember that, and frankly it sounds like something you've invented to justify your attitude. You've always had an overactive imagination, Janelle. Very dramatic. My chest felt tight. Was I crazy? No, I remembered clearly. But this was what they did. They rewrote history, made me doubt my own memories, my own reality. The invoice stands, Mom continued, her voice returning to that cold professionalism. Pay it or we'll be forced to take legal action. Your father has already consulted with Nelson's study group. Several of them specialize in contract law. Contract law? There's no contract. I never agreed to. She hung up. 5 minutes after my mother hung up, my phone exploded with notifications. The family group chat, the one I was rarely active in, was suddenly blowing up. Nelson, really, Janelle? You're going to make my graduation about you? Again. Dad, your mother is very upset. This is unacceptable behavior. Aunt Carol, pay what you owe and stop causing drama. Cousin Devon, some of us actually support family instead of being selfish. I stared at the messages flooding in. My hands shook as I typed. I wasn't invited to the party. How is this fair? Nelson, you know exactly why you weren't invited. Nobody wants your negative energy around. Dad, we've given you every opportunity, Janelle. We raised you, fed you, clothed you. The least you can do is contribute to your brother's success. Nelson, I've never asked you for anything. One time I need family support and you can't even do this? Wow. The lies were breathtaking. They'd paid for everything his entire life. College, apartment, car, his LSAT prep course, his suit for law school interviews. I'd paid for my own tampons starting at age 14 because Mom said I needed to learn financial responsibility. Me, I've never been asked to contribute. I received an invoice with a threat of legal action. That's not how family works. Aunt Carol, you make good money. Stop being cheap. Cousin Devon, she's always been like this. Remember when she wouldn't loan Nelson $5,000 for his spring break trip? I did remember. Nelson had wanted to go to Europe with friends. He was 20 in college with no job. I was working 60-hour weeks to save for a down payment on my house. He'd called me selfish when I said no. Me, I'm not paying $85,000 for a party I didn't attend or approve. Dad, then we'll see you in court. Your mother will be very disappointed. The messages kept coming, each one cutting deeper. I made an appointment with an attorney that afternoon. Rebecca Boykins' office was downtown, filled with leather-bound law books and framed degrees from prestigious universities. She was 45, sharp-eyed, and listened without interrupting as I explained the situation. When I finished, she leaned back in her chair. "Do you have the invoice?" I showed her everything: the email, the PDF, the text messages from the family chat. Rebecca was quiet for a long moment, her expression unreadable. Then she said, "They can't sue you. There's no legal basis. You never agreed to pay, never signed anything, weren't consulted. This is frankly insane." The relief that flooded through me was so intense I almost cried. "So I just ignore it? Legally?" "Yes. But Janelle, I have to ask, do you want a relationship with these people?" The question caught me off guard. "They're my family." "Are they?" Rebecca's voice was gentle but firm. "Family doesn't ambush you with invoices for parties you weren't invited to. Family doesn't threaten lawsuits. What you've described sounds like financial abuse." Financial abuse. The term hung in the air between us. Growing up, were there other instances of unequal treatment? Financial manipulation. I thought about the college fund that disappeared right before I graduated high school. How my parents claimed there was no money, but then paid for Nelson's entire education 2 years later. How I'd been told to get a job at 14 while Nelson received an allowance until he was 22. "Yes," I whispered. "A lot." "Then this isn't about a party invoice. This is about control. They're testing to see if they can still manipulate you into compliance." Her words struck something deep inside me. He was right. What should I do? "That's up to you. But whatever you decide, make sure you're protecting yourself." I decided to try one more time. Face to face. Like adults. I drove to my parents' house on Saturday morning, my stomach churning with anxiety and anger. Dad answered the door. He didn't invite me in. "What do you want, Janelle?" "To talk. About the invoice. About Nelson's party. About everything." He crossed his arms over his chest, blocking the doorway. Behind him, I could see my mother sitting in the living room, deliberately looking away. "There's nothing to discuss. You owe us money. Pay it or face consequences." "Dad, please. Can we just talk? I don't understand how we got here." "I'm your daughter." "A daughter who refuses to support her brother," he interrupted. "A daughter who's always been difficult, always caused problems. Your mother and I are tired of it." The words were like a knife between my ribs. "Difficult? How have I been difficult? You want a list?" His voice rose. "You've always been jealous of Nelson. Always competing with him. You couldn't stand that he was smarter, more successful." "He's not more successful. I have a career. I own a home. You work with computers," Dad said with disgust. "Nelson is going to be a lawyer. A real professional. Someone who matters." The contempt in his voice was absolute. This man who'd raised me, who I'd called Daddy until I was 12, looked at me like I was nothing. "I matter," I said quietly, tears streaming down my face. "I matter too." "Then prove it. Pay for your brother's party. Show us you're actually part of this family." My mother finally stood up and walked over. "Janelle, you're embarrassing yourself. Go home. Send the money. Stop being selfish. We raised you better than this." I looked between them. These two people who'd brought me into the world, who were supposed to love me unconditionally. "No," I said. "I'm not paying." The next week was hell. My phone never stopped buzzing with messages from family members I barely knew, all telling me what a terrible person I was. Someone, I suspected Nelson, had shared the situation on social media, framing it as, "My ungrateful sister refuses to contribute to my graduation." His friends commented, "That's awful, man. Family should support each other." My own cousins shared his post with crying emojis and angry faces. But I also started getting different messages. Private ones. My cousin Ashley, whom I hadn't spoken to in 5 years, sent me a long text. "Janelle, I don't know if you remember, but when I graduated from nursing school, they asked me to pay for Uncle James's retirement party. Said it was family tradition to contribute. I paid $12,000. I'm still in debt. I'm so sorry I didn't warn you. I thought I was the only one." Then my Uncle Robert called, my father's younger brother. "Your dad pulled the same shit on me 30 years ago. Said I needed to pay for his wedding because I was doing well. I paid. Biggest regret of my life. Don't do it, Janelle. They'll never stop. The most shocking message came from Nelson's ex-girlfriend, Simone. We'd been friendly once. You need to know something about Nelson. He's not who you think he is. Can we meet? I met her at a coffee shop on Tuesday evening. Simone looked tired, older than her 26 years. She ordered a latte and said, Nelson told me stories about you. Said you were crazy, jealous, always trying to sabotage him. I believed him. But after we broke up, I started seeing the pattern. What pattern? He lies. About everything. He told me his family paid for law school. Then I found out he had $200,000 in student loans. He said you refused to help him, but when I asked what kind of help, the story kept changing. My heart pounded. What else? He failed the bar exam. Twice. What? I couldn't process it. Nelson failed the bar? But my parents had thrown that massive celebration. The party wasn't for his graduation, Simone continued. Well, it was, but it was also to save face. He graduated law school but couldn't pass the bar. Your parents spent all that money to make it look like everything was perfect. They invited everyone they knew, showed off, made it this huge deal. Because if they admitted Nelson failed, they'd have to admit he's not perfect. The pieces clicked into place. The urgency of the invoice. The amount. They'd overspent dramatically trying to maintain the illusion. How do you know this? His roommate told me. Nelson had a breakdown after the second failure. Your parents convinced him to do the celebration anyway, told him he'd pass eventually, that appearances mattered more than truth. They told him to keep it secret. I felt sick. They're making me pay $85,000 for a party that was based on a lie? That's not even the worst part. Simone pulled out her phone and showed me screenshots. Nelson has been planning to use that Rolex. The $18,000 one listed on your invoice? He's planning to sell it. He told his friend group he needs money for another bar prep course. I stared at the messages. Nelson, once my sister pays for this watch, I can flip it for at least $15,000. She's such an idiot, she'll never know. His friend, dude, that's cold. Nelson, whatever. She owes me anyway. She's always had it easier. Easier. I'd worked 3 jobs through college. Lived on ramen. Worn second-hand clothes. While he'd had everything handed to him. Why are you telling me this? I asked Simone. Because he did the same thing to me. Convinced me to co-sign a car loan, then stopped making payments. Ruined my credit. Your family isn't what they pretend to be, Janelle. They're con artists in nice clothes. I confronted Nelson on Thursday. I showed up at his apartment, the one my parents were still paying rent on while he studied for his 3rd bar attempt. He opened the door in sweatpants, looking annoyed. What do you want? I know you failed the bar. Twice. His face went white, then red. Who told you that? Does it matter? The party was a lie. The whole thing was a performance. And now you want me to pay $85,000 for your failure. It's not failure. It's a temporary setback. I'll pass eventually. He was yelling now, spittle flying from his mouth. You don't understand the pressure I'm under. Everyone expects me to be perfect. So you scam your own sister? You have money. You've always had it easier than me. The irony of his words would have been funny if they weren't so painful. You got to just do whatever you wanted. Nobody cared about your success. But me. I have to carry this family's legacy. Do you know how hard that is? Harder than working 3 jobs through college? Harder than hearing our parents call you special while calling me practical? Harder than watching them pay for everything you wanted while telling me to earn it myself. That's because I'm worth investing in. His voice was venomous. You're just a code monkey. I'm going to be someone important. A lawyer. Someone who changes the world. You're 27 and you've failed the bar twice while living off our parents' money. When exactly does this world-changing start? He moved toward me, his face twisted with rage. Get out. Get out before you what, Nelson? Hit me. Go ahead. Give me one more reason to cut all of you off permanently. We stood there, two siblings who'd grown up in the same house but lived completely different childhoods. "I'm not paying," I said quietly. "Not 1 cent, sue me. Do whatever you want. I'm done." They actually sued me. 3 weeks later, I was served with papers at my office. My coworkers watched as the process server handed me the envelope. "Janelle Morrison, you've been served." The lawsuit claimed breach of oral contract, unjust enrichment, and promissory estoppel. Fancy legal terms that meant nothing because there was no contract. I'd received nothing to be enriched by, and I'd promised nothing. But the humiliation was real. My boss called me into his office. "Is everything okay?" That looked serious. I explained not everything but enough. He listened, his expression darkening. "Your family is suing you for a party bill?" "Janelle, I'm sorry, that's financial abuse. Do you need time off?" "Resources." His kindness made me cry. This man, my boss, showed me more care in 5 minutes than my parents had shown in years. The lawsuit was absurd, but it dragged on for months. Depositions. Interrogatories. My parents hired Nelson's law school friend, someone who'd just passed the bar, to represent them. He was young, eager, and clearly didn't understand how bad this case was. In my deposition, their attorney asked, "Isn't it true you've always been jealous of your brother's success?" "Which success?" I replied, "His law school graduation or his 2 failed bar attempts." The attorney's face fell. What? You didn't know? Your client failed the bar exam twice. The party was to save face. Check the records. Their case started crumbling. My attorney, Rebecca Boykins, who'd taken this on with fierce determination, filed counterclaims for harassment, emotional distress, and abuse of process. "They messed with the wrong person," Rebecca told me. "You have documentation of everything. The unequal treatment, the financial disparities, the manipulation. We're not just defending, we're going on offense." The court date was set for 6 months out. 6 months of my life consumed by this nightmare. 2 months before trial, I received a call from a number I didn't recognize. I almost didn't answer. "Janelle? It's Grandma Ruth. My father's mother." I hadn't spoken to her in 3 years. My parents had slowly cut off contact, claiming she was too old and confused to maintain relationships. "Grandma, are you okay?" "I'm fine, baby. But I heard about the lawsuit. Your cousin told me." "Janelle, I need to tell you something I should have told you years ago." My heart started racing. "What is it?" "Your college fund. The one that disappeared. Your parents didn't lose that money. They transferred it to Nelson's account when he was 15. I saw the bank statements. I confronted your father and he told me to mind my business or he'd cut me off from seeing you kids." The floor seemed to drop out from under me. "They stole my college fund? $25,000. Your grandfather and I had been saving since you were born. We set it up so they couldn't touch it until you turned 18. But somehow they got access and moved it. I tried to stop them, Janelle. I threatened to tell you, and that's when they started keeping you away from me. Told you I was senile, didn't they? I was crying so hard I could barely breathe. They said you didn't want to see me anymore. That you'd moved into assisted living and preferred not to have visitors. I'm in my own house, sharp as ever. They lied to keep me quiet." Her voice broke. "I'm so sorry, baby. I should have fought harder. I should have told you anyway. Do you have proof? Documents?" "I have everything. Bank statements, letters, emails. I kept it all in case you ever needed it. I'll send it to your lawyer." That evidence changed everything. It proved a pattern of financial manipulation spanning over a decade. My attorney was ecstatic. "This is huge, Janelle. This isn't just about a party invoice anymore. This is systematic financial abuse." I filed an amended counterclaim including fraud, theft, and emotional abuse. My parents had no idea what was coming. The trial never happened. 1 week before the court date, their attorney withdrew from the case. Without representation and facing my counterclaims with documented evidence of theft and fraud, my parents' lawyer told them to settle. They dropped the lawsuit, signed a document admitting no debt was owed. In return, I agreed not to pursue criminal charges for the stolen college fund. But the damage was done. Irreversible. Permanent. I didn't hear from them directly. Nelson sent one text. I hope you're happy. You destroyed this family. I blocked his number. 6 months later I changed my name. Not my last name, I kept my own identity, but I moved across the country. New job, new city, new life. Grandma Ruth came with me. She sold her house and moved into a beautiful assisted living community near my new place. We have dinner every Sunday. She tells me stories about my grandfather, shows me photos of myself as a baby that my parents never shared. You were so loved, she tells me. By us. Always by us. I'm in therapy now. Learning that I wasn't crazy, wasn't dramatic, wasn't the problem. Learning that some families are broken in ways that can't be fixed. I still have moments where I grieve, not for my parents as they are, but for the parents I deserved and never had. I grieve for the sister I could have been to Nelson if he'd been raised to see me as human. But mostly, I feel free. Last week I got promoted to Director of Engineering. I make $250,000 a year. I bought Grandma Ruth a beautiful necklace for her birthday. I donate to scholarships for first-generation college students. And I never ever doubt my worth again. Sometimes people ask if I miss my family. The answer is complicated. I miss the idea of family. I miss what I thought we were. But I don't miss the reality. The cruelty disguised as love, the manipulation masked as tradition. My coworker asked me recently, do you think they ever understood what they did wrong? I thought about it for a long time. Then I said, no. And that's the saddest part. They still think they were right. They still think I'm the villain. They've probably found new stories to tell about their ungrateful daughter who abandoned them. Does that bother you? It used to. But I realized something. I don't need them to understand. I don't need their apology or acknowledgement. I need to heal. And I'm doing that. That night, alone in my apartment, I finally let myself cry, not from pain but from release. I mourned the family I never had, said goodbye to the girl who kept hoping they'd love her, and embraced the woman who finally loved herself. The invoice sits in a frame on my wall now. A reminder. Not of their cruelty but of my strength. The day I said no. The day I chose myself. They wanted $85,000. Instead they lost a daughter. And somehow I'm the one who came out richer. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe for more emotional true stories. Have you ever dealt with toxic family dynamics? Share your experience in the comments. Your story might help someone else feel less alone. Remember, choosing yourself isn't selfish. It's survival. You deserve to be valued, loved, and respected. And if your family can't do that, it's okay to build your own family from people who can. Thank you for watching, and remember, you are worthy, you are enough, and you are not alone.